I'm sure Liverpool fans are still processing that dramatic Carabao Cup final win over Chelsea, but when you're in a quadruple hunt, you don't really get time to dwell on the successes, and that's the case for Liverpool because they are back in action on Wednesday evening when they face Southampton in the FA Cup, and I think this is a really, really tough team selection for the manager. Now, Jurgen Klopp always says, doesn't he, that he doesn't look ahead to the next game. He doesn't pick a team for with the next game in mind. He's always picking a team with the last game in mind and the effort that was put into that. And there's no denying that Liverpool put an awful lot in across those 120 minutes against Chelsea, and that they will be feeling the aftermath of that really in the build-up to this game against Southampton. And so I don't think Jurgen Klopp will be making a selection with the fact that Liverpool have got Nottingham Forest next in mind. I think he'll be making a selection knowing that his squad was really, really tested against Chelsea and gave up a lot of energy. And now they've got another game where they have to be as close to the best as possible against Southampton here. And his selection has to have that in mind. He needs quality on the pitch, yes, but he also needs fresh legs because, you know, this is a Southampton side that, yes, they're in the Championship, but they're going really well this season. They're part of that. They're in that hunt for promotion, part of those four sides up at the top who are really challenging. And so they could provide a real test for Liverpool, even with it being at Anfield. And so, you know, Jurgen Klopp's got to get this right. He's got to pick a team that's capable of winning, and he can't just throw out a team of kids to get through. And I would say it's not just important that Liverpool win this on the basis of the going for the quadruple or trying to win the FA Cup this season. It's actually crucial in terms of the Premier League hopes, or certainly I believe so anyway. Now, if they do get through this game, they'll get another FA Cup game before the international break, and that means that the scheduled game in the Premier League against Everton will be moved back, and I think that would massively benefit Liverpool, if I'm honest, because I think Everton away is always a tough game for Liverpool, even when they're absolutely flying. I think Everton have a tendency to make it difficult at Goodison Park. You know, they create a real atmosphere there, don't they? It's always a tricky game, and Liverpool, with the injuries they've got, if they can push that Premier League game back a little bit, I think that would be helpful to them. To go to Goodison Park in better shape in terms of injuries, have more options on the bench, I think that would make things far easier, or certainly less tough than they would be anyway. So I think it's important to get this victory against Southampton for those two reasons. So for all those reasons, I think, as I said, it's a difficult selection for the manager. You know, so many tired legs after that win over Chelsea. So who does he go with? Well, I'm going to have a go at picking my selection for this one. It's probably going to be a few controversial picks in there because it is, as I say, a really, really tricky one. As always, let me know in the comments what you think of the selection as I'm going through. Maybe you'll go with something completely different to this, but this is my selection. Of course, I'll start as ever with the goalkeeper, and I think even this one for me is a difficult one. Now, Alisson Becker, we know, is going to be out until after the international break, so he's not in contention for this one. But I do wonder with Quevin Kelleher, where the decision the manager's got to make here is, you know, Kelleher, do we try and keep him informed, try and keep him playing well, or do we factor in the mental fatigue that might have come in after playing 120 minutes in a cup final? It's a tough decision to make, I think, that one, because you do have Adrian there waiting for minutes. He hasn't played this season, and maybe there's an opportunity for him. But for me, I'm going to go for Kelleher for this one. I think, yes, that mental fatigue is maybe there, but I think, you know, try and keep him in form, keep him sharp. I think there's a good reason we saw the best of Quevin Kelleher against Chelsea, and I think it's because he's getting regular games at the moment. He's really in sort of a run of good form, and I think whenever, particularly with goalkeepers, when they get on a run of solid games, I think it really helps them in terms of reaction times, and they have that rhythm, know the pace of matches, and I think that's been really helpful for Kelleher. So for me, you know, the best idea here really would be to try and keep that going, try and keep this form going, and keep Kelleher in the side rather than putting Adrian in for a rare run out. Now, I'm going to move into the defence now and start at right back. And again, you know, you look at Conor Bradley, put a lot into that game against Chelsea, but I think one thing that favours Liverpool with potentially selecting him again here at right back, there are of course other options. Joe Gomez could potentially play there. Obviously, you know, Trent Alexander-Arnold is not available, but I've gone with Bradley because obviously he plays 72 minutes against Chelsea, so he's not on the pitch for the entirety of extra time, doesn't even complete the 90 in fact, so maybe not as tired as some of the other players who were involved in that. And he actually also came off quite early against Luton, 68 minutes. Maybe that was kind of with this game in mind, that the manager didn't want to put too many minutes in his legs because he maybe knew he was going to have to ask him to play in this game against Southampton. So I think Bradley should be fresh enough to play in this one, and if you really need him for the Nottingham Forest game that's coming up. Maybe just, again, pull him off slightly early, maybe bring him out with 20 minutes to play if you can afford to do so. I think that's the option to go with Bradley and ensure that you won't tire him out too much, but I still think he should be absolutely capable of playing the full 90 here if it's required. So he is my pick at right back. Now, I mentioned Joe Gomez as a potential option at right back, and the reason I didn't go with him there is because I want him in at centre half. I think he's an obvious pick. Now, he did come on early against Chelsea, but in the end he plays a total of 92 minutes, so I guess that's almost a normal game time really for him. It's like he's played a full 90 minutes, and these players can do back-to-back, can't they, from the weekend to midweek. So I don't think it's asking too much of Joe Gomez to do that, and I just don't think it's an option really to put Konate back in after he played the 90 minutes, then 15 minutes of extra time, didn't he? I don't think you want to risk him in a game like this with his propensity to get muscle issues, and obviously Virgil van Dijk again, don't really want him anywhere near this one if I'm honest. So for that reason I've gone Joe Gomez, and as I mentioned there, no Van Dijk, no Konate. You can probably guess who my next centre half is going in there, and that's Jarell Quansah. I think he is an obvious pick really in this one. He only played that second half of extra time in the final against Chelsea, and the FA Cup and the Cups in general have been really good opportunities for him this season. So I think again we'll see him come into that central defence alongside Gomez, and that's a pretty solid pairing, I think, for the fact you're looking at your third and fourth centre half picks there. That should be good enough to win this game, I would say. Now I'm going to finish up the defence with the pick at left back, and again, maybe I could have moved Joe Gomez out there, maybe Andy Robertson can play again, but I think it'll be Kostas Tsimikas for this one. He comes on late in the game against Chelsea, again only 3 minutes of normal time remaining when he comes onto the pitch, and so he basically plays that half an hour of extra time, so he should absolutely be ready for this one. And I think the case similarly with Gomez in terms of yes, he played minutes in the final and got through that, and then you're backing that up with minutes in this game. But I think I don't expect Gomez or Tsimikas, same with Quansah, maybe to maybe be in the lineup against Forest. I think there are certain players who you would bring back in for that game who are obvious picks. So you can ask Tsimikas to go in again at left back. You can ask Gomez at centre half, I think, to go again in this one. And I still think that on paper to me is a strong enough defence to get the job done, particularly at Anfield. Now things get a little bit trickier once you get out of defence. Not a lot of obvious rotational options. I'll start in the holding role, and the first thing I'll say about this is there's absolutely no chance that Wataru Endo will be anywhere near this. Now I'm talking before we've had the press conference to preview this game, so I haven't got all the available info on injuries, but it was seen that Wataru Endo was wearing a protective boot as he left Wembley on Sunday. Now I'm not so convinced that that's an injury. Endo, when he spoke to journalists, suggested that it wasn't anything serious. I think they were just very much looking after him and protecting him. I think he took a kick on the leg from Caicedo late in the game, so I think it was just that. I don't think it's an injury, but regardless of that, don't want to see Endo anywhere near this one, because he gets through the 120 minutes at Wembley and he was absolutely tireless in that game. The amount of running he got through, there's just no way you can ask him to play this game, and he has to play in the next Premier League game, so he needs to be rested up for that. So don't want to see him even, he'll probably be in the squad for this one, but don't want to see him anywhere near the pitch, and for that reason I think the only real option you've got in holding midfield, because again McAllister's another one I would kind of like to protect and don't want him in that holding role for this one. So I think the obvious pick is maybe to go with James McConnell there. Now he has played in that holding role a couple of times for Liverpool this season. It's maybe Klopp said it's not maybe his natural role, but I think he's very, very capable and shows real quality in that position. I thought he was absolutely fantastic against Chelsea as well, by the way. His performance for me out of all the subs was the one that really changed the game. He really allowed Liverpool to get control of the game back in extra time, I thought, and that was the reason that Chelsea's sort of threat died off and that Liverpool was still a threat, or enough of a threat to score the winning goal in the end. So McConnell a big part of that, so I'd love to see him in the holding role here and to get a 90 minutes against a decent level of opposition in Southampton. I really would like to see him get that chance, and kind of similarly ahead of him in midfield, a couple of opportunities I'm giving out, because again, the midfield options are really thin at the moment, aren't they? Now obviously we know that Endo, I wouldn't want him in the advanced role anyway, but I think he got through so much. Same with McAllister. Obviously Curtis Jones is still injured. Ryan Gravenberch has got a new injury that even if he made a miraculous recovery, I wouldn't expect him to be in the starting lineup here. And Dominic Szoboszlai is another one where I expect him maybe to be in the squad for this one. He said he had a chance for the final, didn't he? And he was disappointed not to be part of that. But if he is part of this game, then I would think it would be very much a bench role. Liverpool won't want to take risks with a hamstring injury, will they? Particularly he's had a recent recurrence. I think Liverpool are going to use an excessive caution around Szoboszlai, so don't expect him to be in the team for this one. And so these two picks in these number 8 roles ahead of the holder are really, really difficult ones. And I think one of them is maybe the more obvious pick, and that is Bobby Clark. I'm going with him. Again, I thought he did brilliantly off the bench at Wembley, and I think he's been around the first team, hasn't he? He's been the one who's been, Conor Bradley's come in and played a lot of games, Quansah similarly, and I think Clark's been sort of the next closest to being the sort of next cab off the rank, hasn't he? So it wouldn't really surprise me to see him get an opportunity in this one, and I think he deserves it, particularly off the back of that, really strong showing off the bench at Wembley. So good opportunity, good chance for him, and looking forward to watching him play actually. And then the one alongside him, again, difficult, not a lot of options there for Liverpool, and I struggle to see how maybe the manager doesn't go with a really young pick in this one. Maybe this midfielder's too young, maybe he has to throw an experienced head in there for 60 minutes, but I would kind of like to see Trey Ione given a chance now. You could say he's 16 years old, he's very young, but he's been very, very impressive for the youth teams when he's played since signing from Leicester over the summer, and beyond that, I think the biggest reason I've got such faith in him is the idea that he's been in and around the first team quite frequently this season so far. He's been on the bench a couple of times. So Klopp has clearly been massively impressed by what he's seen when he's been involved in first team training. And if that's the case, with all those injuries I've listed, and again, I didn't even mention the fact that Harvey Elliott, he put in a ridiculous shift at Wembley. He's probably not an option here in this right-sided midfield. So, could it be a chance for Trey Ione to play? As I say, maybe the manager will err on the side of caution and put a senior player in there. Maybe McAllister's the most likely, as he didn't complete the 90 at Wembley, but I still think that feels like a little bit of a risk, and maybe it could be a chance for Ione to come in there, or certainly he's the man I'm picking. As I always say, let me know in the comments if you disagree. Now, going to move into the forward line, and again, doesn't get much easier. I think about what was put into that Wembley win, and obviously, as I mentioned, Elliott, he's an option in that forward line. Certainly started there at Wembley, but again, put so much into that game. The same goes for Luis Diaz. Those two absolutely ran themselves into the ground to a degree that I wouldn't want to see them anywhere near the team for this one. And we know that Jota's out, and Salah maybe has a chance to be on the bench, but even if that's the case, again, with Salah, I think you don't want to take a risk. He's had a little slight recurrence of a muscle issue there. Don't take the risk of putting him in the team. It'd be great to bring him off the bench. And very similar story for Darwin Núñez, in fact. So those two, I think, if they're involved, keep them on the bench and maybe go with what is on paper a weaker starting front three, but maybe give yourself the chance to win it late on by bringing on the big guns. And for that reason, I'll start with the maybe the obvious pick in terms of the who's in the front three, and that's on the left hand side. I've gone with Cody Gakpo there. I mean, he could be on either wing, left or right, really. It sort of depends on how things shake up, but I do expect him to be in the starting 11 for those reasons, because no Diaz, no Jota, no Núñez. He didn't complete the game at Wembley, did he? Even though he worked as hard as anyone else, but I think he should have it in him to go again in this game. And again, if Liverpool are getting forwards back, maybe Gakpo can give you 90 minutes in this game, and then maybe you get Salah and Núñez back to alongside Diaz to maybe start against Forest. So I think Gakpo's an obvious pick in there. The other two maybe not so. Now up front, I've gone with Jayden Danns. Now, again, I thought he was massively impressive off the bench against Chelsea. He only made his Liverpool debut in midweek against Luton, but a really impressive cameo in it, and he sort of matched that against Wembley. I thought his ability to sort of sniff out chances was quite impressive. He had the headed chance that was saved, but he also came close to tap-ins a couple of times. So he really, he's really got that ability to sniff out chances around the box. And I think what Klopp will like about him in terms of using him as a centre forward here is he's definitely, what he's got in inexperience, he makes up for in terms of his physical profile. He's a big lad, isn't he? Good footballer, but also a big lad who can throw himself about and sort of looks, even despite the fact he's so young, kind of ready for men's football. So I think that helps his chances over any of the sort of young strikers that Liverpool have got knocking about in the academy, is that Danns looks the most physically ready. And so I think he's capable of putting in 50 minutes here, or 60 minutes even, in this game. And maybe if you have Núñez on the bench, that's the change you make late in the game. And I think, but I'd love to see Jayden Danns given the opportunity. As I say, there's so much tiredness about this Liverpool squad, so many injuries. Maybe Jayden Danns has played himself in for this game, and I think he definitely deserves the opportunity of what we've seen. And it's yes, it's a tough pick, putting in so many kids, but as I said, I think Jurgen Klopp's hands are a little bit tied around this selection. And I think similarly for my final pick of the team really is that, again, it's so many youngsters, but I've gone for Kumas in this one. Again, maybe Kate Gordon's in and around, but I think it's telling to me that Kumas is the one who makes the bench ahead of Gordon for the cup final on Sunday. He really does seem to be ahead of him in the pecking order, and Kumas he can feature as a centre forward, but he has featured on either wing a lot this season, mostly on the left wing, which maybe if that's, Klopp wants to put him in and put him in a position where he feels natural and he's most comfortable, maybe you would see Kumas on the left wing and then Gakpo move out to the right to accommodate him there. But again, with Kumas, I think that pick maybe has to be made. You can't throw Salah in straight away, you can't throw Núñez in. Diaz he'd be so tired after what he put in against Chelsea, and we need him against Forest as well. So for me, it's going to be Kumas, and that really completes a very, very young-looking team, I must admit, but I think a team that maybe Jurgen Klopp has to pick as he looks to keep this quadruple run going. So let me know, as ever, in the comments what you think of the selection. Maybe you completely disagree with that. Maybe I have gone too young here, but I think, as I say, I think it's a really, really tricky pick for Jurgen Klopp, this one, and if he can get more senior players in there, I think he would love to, but whether that's an option or not, we'll have to really see in terms of what the shape of the squad is like. As I say, let me know in the comments what you think as ever, and please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. And as ever, I'll be back after the Southampton game to review the game and the result and the individual performances, and hopefully we're still talking about Liverpool being on a quadruple hunt.